welcome to the Friday. It's kind of gloomy and yucky, although I did just went for a ski run and it was good. It's nice to be outside exercising. Okay, so I got two topics. Let's start with pretty big news, which I think unrelated to COVID. New York Times basically saying that finally EPA is going to start making polluters pay for cleanups. So in the past, you may have heard me discuss this. In this country, the burden of all of the consequences of toxic environment is on the society, is on taxpayers. Meaning that if any chemical industry makes particular toxic element, they're not responsible for proving safety, they're not responsible for cleaning the mess after them, and they're not responsible for any consequences to the health. They would have to be taken to court through the legal action to prove causality. They caused harm knowingly that it was causing harm. If they didn't know, they cannot even be blamed for anything. So in Europe, it's sort of exactly the reverse. So the reason the Europe thought to have a lot less cancer and a lot of less problems overall with many health issues related to toxicity is exactly that. There's just a lot of less toxic pollutants in the environment because they're responsible for putting them in there. And if they're found to be responsible, they get shut down and they have to compensate everybody for all the damages. And it's so finally, there seems like the Biden administration beginning to shift the needle, which I'm beyond excited. I think this is a major first step. So what happened is that two well-known problematic components. And don't ask me to pronounce this. I will try, but I'm sure I'll butcher it. So one is PFOA, which is perfluorooctanoic acid, and the other one is PFOS, and this is the one that we're going to talk more about. And that's a perfluorooctanosulfonic acid. Okay, it's a mouthful. In short, those are the things that we see a lot in Teflon pans, in multiple different chemicals. It's what makes things to make them kind of a slick, shiny, and slippery. So anytime you see any plastics that require that quantity, you can pretty much assure that those chemicals going to be in. The problem is those chemicals killing us in mass, and there's been very well documented. They cause lots of cancers. They cause kidney failure. They may be even related to things like Alzheimer's disease. So, and they're everywhere. They're in children's toys. They're in the water. They're in pretty much every state and every city. They're everywhere. They're slowly accumulating, and the biggest problem, they never break down. So no matter when and in what amount they enter your body, they're there forever. And so they will forever accumulate, and you have very little way of handling them unless you try to drop the exposure as much as possible and try to engage in detoxification. So what I did is I did a pretty full video for about 15 minutes. So I haven't posted it out on my YouTube yet, but I will. Meantime, I'm going to give you a link so you can take a look at two specific resources. So one is the Environmental Working Group resource page. Definitely check that out. And the second one is the actual New York Times article, just so you're more familiar with the political situation. I have a feeling that this will immediately shift two things. First, we're going to see a massive class actions, because if EPA is saying you're responsible, nobody's protecting them anymore. So I expect that if you, for example, know of anybody who died from cancer or have cancer, you can actually assess this chemical in their urine. And if it's there, you can sue the Purdue. And I'm already reading that there is a mass class actions that are about to start. It's going to be very similar to what happened with suits against Bayers for the glyphosate linking causing leukemias, so lymphomas and leukemias. So that's going to be probably following the same pattern. So that's one big news. Had nothing to do with COVID, but I thought it's important to put it. When I post the video, in the video, I talk a little bit more specifically about what you can do to detox, but I don't think we have time for that. So the other news, actually directly COVID related. And so here I'm going to give you also a couple of links. So the COVID news is, the actual news is from US News. It's a NAS report, so National Academies of Sciences. They finally did a very, very comprehensive analysis. Well, do the vaccines, the COVID vaccines, cause particular harm? And this is a very independent resource. I trust this analysis. I think it's quite well done. Unfortunately, it doesn't answer some of the critical questions. So here's the copy of the MAS report in the link. And basically, what did they do? They got a whole bunch of experts together. I looked the names. Everybody seems to be unrelated to the industry. Most of the people who did the analysis and work on this report, they're all academicians for most part. I didn't see any exposure, any disclosures of links to the industry, which eliminates hopefully some of the biases. And so the myocarditis risk, they confirmed, we already knew that, but they really could not confirm a whole lot of things. They basically said, look, we don't really think that there are a lot of risks, but unfortunately, we can't prove or disprove causality of things like clotting, strokes, infertility, heart attacks, Bell's palsy, Guillain-Barré syndrome. So Guillain-Barré is a type of unusual paralysis that kind of ascends from bottom up. And they're saying that there probably is no correlation, but they can't make it sure. So if you look at that link I gave you, the last one, you can actually scroll to a table 1, which has a causal conclusions regarding vaccine. And they're basically saying for all vaccines, except for Novavax. For Novavax, they didn't have enough data to say anything at all. But for the basically Pfizer and Moderna, which is what we're interested the most, right? So they basically saying for Guillain-Barré, for Bell's palsy, for thrombosis, and for what's called TTP or thrombocytopenic thrombotic syndrome, or purpur, sorry, they leaning towards saying there is no causal relationship. So they're rejecting causal relationship. But a lot of things like sudden death, deep thrombosis, hemorrhagic stroke, immune reactions like immune thrombocytopenic purpura, capillary leak syndrome, POTS, post-orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, chronic headaches, there's just not enough data. So they basically saying, look, we can't prove or disprove the causality, so we're just going to state that. I find that it's sort of probably partially reassuring for us because, if they didn't find it, chances are it's not there. But it's a little unsettling to me that so many conditions, they couldn't really have enough information because, the data is there. There's millions of shots. I did not go deeply into the report, so I don't, and, honestly, report is exuberantly big. It's something like 314 pages. So if you have all free time in the world, you want to spend it on this, by all means, maybe you can report it to us next time. But, I do trust this report more than anything else. I think it is currently the best data on safety of vaccines. Unfortunately, I wish it'd be a little bit more, but I also find it interesting. They do say, and this is important, right? Remember I mentioned that there seems to be several studies suggesting increased risk of a stroke after the vaccines. And I kind of was talking about this in several videos and also here on Friday meeting. But they're actually saying, let me find this. They're saying for hemorrhagic stroke, there is no causality. They don't know, yes or no. But for the Pfizer, they're saying they favor and rejecting the causality. They think that there's not enough data. But for the Moderna, they're saying there may be a correlation. They cannot reject it. So I, take it for what it's worth. Take a closer look at this. I put the links. So yeah, that's it for me for today. So I guess, what's the next step, Janet?
Well, I don't see Dr. Babcock here, so let's just go to Shervon.
Let's see if there's any Q&A today.
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely do Q&A.
5 minutes, and then
Okay.
If not, we'll go straight to Shervon.
Okay.
Hi, I have a question. You just said that there was some type of causal relationship with the Moderna as far as hemorrhagic strokes. Can you expand on that for a minute?
So a couple of months ago, more than a couple of months ago, about 6 months ago, there was a study showing that in people over 65, there was an increased risk of strokes within 4 weeks after the vaccines, both Pfizer and Moderna. It was one study, but it was a big study. It was so important that I featured it on my YouTube channel. Let me give me a second to see if I can find that. And basically, that's what it was. It was a study that's showing there was a small but significant increase, but that increase only existed in people over 65. Now, they're claiming they ruled out that, so that other studies didn't show it. And when they put all the studies together, they're claiming, this experts of NIS report claiming that there is no relationship. So it does not cause it. But they couldn't say that for the Moderna. So they're saying they're certain that there is no, it's not certain. You see, that's the problem. The language that they're using goes like this. They're saying favors rejection of a causal relationship. It's a very soft call. They're basically afraid of making a very strong statement because there are studies showing harm. And that's sort of the problem. And one of the issues, you can think of it this way, they're looking at the massive databases of millions and millions of people, and they're looking for a risk that's very, very small. You know, if something happens after a million, like think of it this way, you live your life, right? And if you look in terms of just temporary relationship, if you survey a population of 1 million people over 1 week, you're going to have some people having strokes, regardless of the cause, right? It's just going to happen naturally. Now you enter the vaccines into this mix, and unfortunately, you're going to have so many different variables and so many biases entering this analysis. It's going to be very difficult to say, is it causative? Is there a causal relationship or isn't it? And that's what they're trying to weed through all kinds of intricacies statistically to say, is this relation, all these relationships are real? And when they say we're favoring that the rejection of a causal relationship, to me it's reassuring. To me it means that the prior data, those couple of studies that found correlation, could have just been random. You know, they could have had random results which were not real. But nonetheless, you know, I do think that,
which means maybe there's no causal relation at all, huh?
well, that's what they're saying. Now, what I did in the video that I'm giving you guys a link right now is a little bit different. This was a video that I got really upset because there was a push for a while to combine the flu shots with COVID vaccines. And so the study that showed very significant risk, that I read as significant risk, was in that combination. And even that study said there may be a relationship between purely COVID vaccine, but it's way, way weaker when the COVID was combined with flu shot. That's why those of you who've been following our meetings, we always say, please space out any vaccines from COVID vaccines, at least by 2 weeks. So, but all in all, that's, yeah.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Sure. Oh, it looks like Dr. Babcock is here, so great.
Hello. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
How are you?
Good.
So, yeah, that sounded like a good discussion. I'm sorry I missed the beginning of it. Anyway, well, nice to see everybody. And my name's Dr. Mary Babcock, and I'm the director of Artius Integrative Medicine, now located in Tysons, so closer to you guys. And I'm just going to talk about just some various health benefits of caffeine, because a lot of people, you know, some folks say, oh, caffeine's bad for you, or you should stay away from caffeine, and, you know, everything in moderation. But I came across some studies that I thought were just, you know, interesting, like just to share on different effects of it. So one of the things, you obviously don't really want to limit your caffeine intake to about no more than 2 cups a day, because it can cause some elevated blood pressure and you know, some dependency on it, where if you don't drink your coffee, you get the rebound headaches. But as far as other positive effects, it can help upregulate or the effects of dopamine on the brain. As far as effects on the brain, adenosine, it blocks adenosine receptors, which are generally adenosine's inhibitory to brain function a lot of the times. And I'm not going to go into big details on that, but when the caffeine blocks those receptors, then the effects of dopamine can become more effective. And dopamine stimulates parts of our brain that induce pleasure and motivation. So I think that's how some people, they just like have that sense of well-being when they have their first cup of coffee in the morning. I myself am guilty of that. And but it also gives you more motivation to maybe go ahead and exercise more, or just have a little focus in your day. There were a review of 30 studies did show that caffeine has a positive effect on metabolism and sugar control. And 1 cup of coffee consumed per day was found to have a 6% decreased risk of developing type 2 diabetes. And it was also found to be beneficial for the beta cells of our pancreas, which is the cells in the pancreas that produce insulin to regulate our blood sugars. And the last thing I wanted to talk about was just another, 13 studies that showed caffeine consumption decreased the risk and slowed the progression of Parkinson's disease over time. So I just thought those were just different points that people don't really know much about or aren't talked about with caffeine. Yeah, I guess I can just open up to questions, or it's really all I wanted to share.
I love this so much because I usually drink 1 to 2 cups of coffee every morning. But my question is, did they look at whether drinking black coffee versus people like to put in their sugars and creams and all that was better, or did it not matter?
Yeah, I think they were just, actually the studies I saw was just black coffee. So no added creams and sugars. Yeah. I think there was something in the chat. Let me see there.
My question is about decaf versus caffeine. Some people say you don't get the benefit from decaf as you do if you use the caffeine. Is that true?
Yeah, I think the studies I looked at, it was specifically for the caffeinated coffee, because if you take the caffeine out of it, you won't get the benefits. And because there's just even the decaffeinated, there's always a little bit of caffeine in there that you can't truly decaffeinate coffee, but it's just so it would just be much minimized as opposed to just drinking regular coffee.
Okay.
But if someone's like, say, caffeine sensitive, some folks, you could just switch to green tea and the caffeine in green tea, and you get the added antioxidants with the green tea by ingesting that.
Some green tea is caffeine free too.
Yeah, so it's naturally with caffeine.
It's naturally.
Are you caffeine sensitive?
Yes, I am.
So
yes.
Yeah, so you probably just wouldn't want to, maybe just half a cup. But you will get some of it, because nothing, even if it's caffeine free, it's never completely caffeine free.
That's what I figured. It's a little bit of something there always in the coffee and the tea.
Yeah.
Okay. So I do get a little bit of the benefit, not the full blown benefit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure. I guess there's a question on the autoimmune protocol calls for no coffee. So if that's something that you have to do, then follow the autoimmune protocol and no coffee. Mine was, my purpose of talking about caffeine today was just the health benefits, not having to do with any autoimmune issues. If anybody else wants to comment on that, you're welcome to.
Yeah, I mean, I think this has more to do with the dysregulation of the central nervous system being one of the triggers of autoimmunity. And you don't want to, if you're already off balance, I think if you take caffeine and you sort of have this roller coasters of a bit more overstimulated central nervous system. But I think that the overall data is very clear. Caffeine is very effective at, when it stimulates central nervous system, it seems to be highly protective against all kinds of issues, Parkinson, Alzheimer's. I mean, there's a long list of benefits, however you look at this. But it's an interesting comment. I actually have seen this, and I questioned that myself quite a bit. I've even raised this question at one of the large IFM meetings to, I forgot who was presenting, and they didn't really answer it well. I think it was just kind of, the idea was that yes, it could dysregulate you more, and if you're already kind of quite inflamed, that may be not a good thing. But coffee has an anti-inflammatory component, so this it never sat well with me. Truth.
Yeah, and I also wonder too, maybe they're cautioning if the person's really adrenal depleted, and so adding another stimulant, they're making just a blanket statement for no coffee.
Yeah, that's probably the real answer, is that how do you truly figure it out, especially in the beginning when you just start working with someone. It may be safer just to get off of it for a while. Anecdotally, my wife just got off the coffee. She says she feels a whole lot better.
She's more calm.
Yeah, she was doing, I mean, I do 2 to 3, and she was probably doing about the same. And, I actually do think that it's wise to periodically have caffeine-free period of time. So I try to, every couple of weeks, I try to take like a full 24-hour block of no caffeine. That includes teas, by the way, too.
Let's see.
A great discussion.
Yeah. Did I miss? So I guess we're ready for the next person.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mary and Shervon. You're up. I think you have a full half an hour.
All right.
Can you put your contact info and a practice link into the chat, so then Janet has it and everybody else have it in case somebody wants to reach out to you later? Thank you so much, Shervon. Thanks. So great to see you again.
Great to see you as well. Happy to be here.
I'll do that so you can get going.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you, Janet. So good afternoon and happy Friday to everyone. My name is Shervon Laurice. I am the owner and founder of Restore Tranquility, which is a private practice in downtown Silver Spring. We offer psychotherapy, or what people like to call talk therapy, as well as yoga therapy and mindfulness-based psychedelic therapy with a focus on cannabis work. And so today we are going to talk a little bit about fear as it pertains to worry, anxiety, and stress. And why I chose to talk about fear today is because in nearly all of my friend and social circles, as well as in my sessions with clients professionally, this idea of fear is popping up more and more, especially as we're coming out of the pandemic. And people have gotten back to their normal rhythm of life. Now they have to go back to the office more than just one day a week. And so this idea of people feeling fearful, scared, worried, anxious, and stressed is starting to be this recurring theme. So I kind of wanted to bring this as our topic today. Fear and all of those things that go along with it, worry and anxiety in particular for mental health, right, is this thing that has become chronic in our day-to-day society. Fear is a normal part of our human existence. It's a normal part of our emotional makeup. But fear, like some other, what we would call negative emotions, are starting to play a bigger role in our day-to-day human existence in our lives. So whether it's watching the news and the conflicts around the world, to hearing about the crime that's on the rise in cities, to our day-to-day personal lives, if there's conflict either in the home or on the job. What we're also seeing is people are fearful of this current economy and what it means for jobs or job loss. Also in reference to the economy, and we've all seen this as well, the rise in the cost of goods, the rise in the cost of everything. I was telling a friend this past week, I continue to go to the grocery store and get 2 bags worth of groceries, and continually it costs me $100, where 4 years ago, that same amount of groceries in those 2 bags would have cost me somewhere around $60 to $70. So it's really, really interesting what we're seeing on the economic side as well. And so there are these themes of fear that is causing stress, anxiety, and chronic worry for a lot of people. And so what I've been talking to my clients about is how to mitigate some of that fear, how to bring a little bit more balance into your life and harmony for your central nervous system in reference to fear. Some of the effects of fear on our bodies and our mental health are this rise in cortisol and rise in adrenaline in our bodies. And if fear, anxiety, and worry are on a constant drip, those hormones stay elevated to some extent. It's almost like it's harder for our bodies to get back to the original homeostasis. And so in that elevated state with those hormones more at the ready, we start to notice things like GI issues, sleep disturbance. People are complaining in record numbers to their doctors about not being able to sleep, not being able to get enough sleep, or falling asleep and waking up somewhere in the middle of the night and not being able to get back to sleep. GI issues, from irritable bowel to just stomach upset and general discomfort. And yes, some of that could be diet, but a lot more people are complaining about those things and they haven't really changed their diets. Cardiovascular issues can be affected by the rise in these kinds of hormones. Excuse me. Also fibromyalgia, and I am definitely one of those people who, especially in my younger years, was really super affected by stress, some trauma as well, and developed an autoimmune issue. And I've got clients that come to me who have developed an autoimmune issue, and stress is one of those underlying in the background things that they deal with. And when they're able to lower the stressors in their life, their symptoms of their autoimmune issues also lessen in that regard. Believe it or not, insulin resistance is connected to the rise of stress and anxiety, as well as mood swings, anxiety and depression in particular. And so when I'm working with someone who has a high level of anxiety or living with especially hard to treat depression, we talk about the stressors in their lives, the things that they worry about on a chronic daily basis, and how to better manage those things. Some of the ways that we can lessen the effect of fear in our lives and to mitigate those effects is exercise, which it's interesting when I suggest exercise to people who are living with depression because oftentimes they don't really want to move. They don't have the motivation to move. But what I try to stress is that if you move just a little bit, your body then feels better and you will then have more capacity, more ability to move a little bit more. So exercise can be as simple as getting out for a walk. And most doctors talk about at least 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week. Well, if you're the type of person who's not really mobile in that way, then start with 10 minutes. Start with walking around your city block or your neighborhood, and then just come back in. And every time you get out to walk, add a few minutes to that walk until you can build up to that 30 minutes. But if you're more mobile, then doing more cardiovascular exercise or getting to the gym and doing strength training, as well as yoga. Yoga has been found to also reduce the experience of stress in the body and improve mental health. So exercise being one thing, journaling is another. Just allowing yourself to write down, free thought, no editing, what is happening in your mind, the thought processes, the random thoughts that come up, the worries, the checklists. One of the things that I experienced with some of my clients who lean more anxious, the lists that run in their minds, but they don't make it to paper. And so I usually talk with them about just get it down on paper so that it doesn't feel like there's something you're trying to hold on to that you don't want to forget, right? Also, getting things out of the brain helps the brain to kind of have a sense of release and calm, and therefore calms worry and anxiety. There's also a connection between anything that we do with our hands, including writing. It can be as simple as doing the dishes. It can be gardening. It can be crafting, artwork. It helps to calm anxiety naturally. Petting a pet helps to calm anxiety. And so I encourage people to start, if they don't have something they do regularly with their hands, to start to pick up either a hobby or an activity that will allow them to use their hands more often. Some of the other things we suggest is healthy eating. And I by no means advocate for any kind of a particular diet. But what I do help people think about is how can me as an individual eat healthier for me? And some of the things that we talk about have to do with inflammation in the body, because inflammation is one of the things that is on the rise. The more stress, the more worry, the more anxiety that you have in your life. And so to mitigate some of that stress, some of that inflammation, we talk about lowering the incidences of sugar intake, wheat intake, alcohol intake, and dairy intake, because those food groups have been known to spike inflammation in people's body. And if you're trying to keep that down and you're trying to cause less stress to the body, decreasing those food groups might prove helpful. And as we talked about earlier, increasing or incorporating rather a cup or two of coffee per day. So that's helpful, which is what I do in the morning. And then sleep. The recommendation is at least 7 to 9 hours of sleep per day, uninterrupted, that allows you to get into that deep REM sleep. And so I often talk with my clients about sleep hygiene. What is your 1 to 2 hours before your desired time for bed look like? Do you have all the lights on? Are you in front of a big television screen, or are you on your computer, or tablet, or phone right up until when it is that you want to go to bed? And we then will talk about, if that is the case, what shifts can be made. Dimming the lights, getting off of all screens at least an hour before your desired bedtime. If you're a tea drinker, having some non-caffeinated tea before bed, making sure you don't have a heavy or a large meal just before bed, and exercise earlier in the day also helps with getting to sleep at night and staying asleep at night. So we talk about all of these things as ways to mitigate the effect of fear, anxiety, and worry on the body. And then my two favorite things to talk about are breath work as well as meditation. And so breath work is this wonderful thing that I love to teach my clients about, because we take our breath with us everywhere we go. And at any given time, we can drop into our bodies and take a deep inhale in and a long, slow exhale out. Breathing helps us to naturally begin to balance our central nervous system. And so when we are stressed, anxious, and fearful, we are activating the sympathetic nervous system, our fight, flight, or fear mechanism. When we are calm, when we are in a place of being happy, present, not activated by fear, we are in the rest, digest, and restore side of our nervous system. The body has a natural regulatory system that when we inhale, we're on the sympathetic side. When we exhale, we activate the parasympathetic nervous side, which is the rest and digest side. And so adding a conscious breathing practice, a conscious breath practice to your day can really help to also mitigate the effects of the rise in hormones from fear, worry, anxiety, and stress. And so we're going to do a little bit of a breath practice in a few minutes just before the meditation. Meditation is the other favorite that I like to teach my clients. And meditation is really simple. I think in our society, we have made it more complicated than it needs to be. And yes, there are many styles of meditation that are out there. And I've tried many, but the simplest is just concentrating on your breath, or concentrating on any one target. So it could be your breath, it could be something that is sitting in front of you, plant, candle, a lamp, something pretty, decorative, or looking outside of a window. And then also allowing yourself, as you're paying attention to the object that you choose, staying in stillness and awareness. So getting out of our thoughts and dropping into the present moment, into our bodies. And so I will invite you now to take a seat comfortably. And so that can be in a chair, on the floor, on a couch, wherever you are, and allow either your feet to rest on the floor if you're in a chair or the couch, or if you're able to cross your legs, you can, that's fine. You can do these two things pretty much at your desk if you're at work as well. I cannot tell you how many times when I used to work for the federal government in law enforcement, how many times I was sitting in my cubicle doing breath work and taking a brief meditation so that I could calm my own stress in the work that I was doing and things that I was seeing every day. So allow yourself to get fully comfortable. And you're invited to lower your gaze or close your eyes. and connect to one of these things. Either a sound in the room or space that you're in that is consistent, or the sound of my voice, or connect to the rhythm and pattern of your breath. And as you connect, allow yourself to simply notice for now. And without losing your connection to your object, take a deep inhale in and a long, slow exhale out. Inhale. And exhale. We'll do 3 more rounds. And I encourage you to allow your exhales to get longer than your inhales. Inhale. And exhale. Inhale. And exhale. Last one. Inhale. And exhale. Now allow yourself to come back to your natural rhythm of your breath. And take some awareness as to how you're feeling in your body and in your mind. And then we'll move gently into the meditative practice for a few minutes. Coming back to the object that you chose. And sinking into stillness. Notice where your body meets up with the object that you're sitting on. Notice the weight and balance of your torso over your hips. And allow your shoulders to relax. Relaxing the jawline and the eyebrow line. Allowing just awareness to be your guide in this moment. Letting go of judgment around anything that pops up in your mind. Simply notice it and let it go. Allow yourself to just be in this space of awareness. Noticing the intricate space in the room that you're in, if you're viewing an object in your room, or the ebbs and flow of your breath. Know that this moment, all is well. Now, begin to deepen the breath. Taking a deeper inhale and an audible exhale. And bring your awareness back into the space, the room that you're in. And when you're ready, opening your eyes and rejoining the virtual room that you're in. And I encourage you to just go slowly, be gentle with yourself. Allow your awareness to stay at the forefront of your mind, noticing the state of your physical body as you begin to move, the quality and rhythm of your breath, and more importantly, even your state of mind. In Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, one of my favorite lines and definition of yoga, and yoga includes meditation, is yoga is to calm the fluctuations of the mind. And so when you practice a breath practice or a meditation practice, let that be one of your gauges. Does it feel like the fluctuations of your mind have lessened? So that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for joining me and having me here.
Thanks so much, Shervon. It was wonderful.
So welcome.
I really appreciate both of you, and thank you for giving your time to us today. I think if anybody wants to unmute themselves to say thank you or put a thank you in the chat window, please do.
I want to say thank you to the young lady that just presented, the doctor. You hit on all the points that I like to do as far as breathing and yoga, and it does work for removing fear or lessening fear, and it calms the whole nervous system down, the breathing, and I resort to it 7 days a week. Thank you very much, and thank all three of you presenters.
Thank you, Lynette.
I appreciate you, Lynette.
Thank you.
Does anybody have, we have a couple of minutes left. Does anybody have any questions? I will happily answer.
This is Lynette again. I have another question. I've practiced chanting like Om and some of the Buddhist chants, and they say that that Om, it does a vibration in the chest, which
Yes.
is good for, I guess, everything.
Yes. Yes. There are a number of mantras or chats out there across Eastern cultures that are beneficial. And they think that they're beneficial because we are all, like, everything is frequency. We all have a vibration, and the mantras have their own vibration. And it's almost like the mantras or chants retune us, get us back in harmony. Just like some of the instruments that we learned to use when we were younger, or still maybe play, we retune. So
Oh, that's cool. That's
keep
cool.
chanting, keep chanting.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, Misha, is there anything you need to tell us? Yes, me. Oh,
That's all for today. Thank you, Shervon. Thank you, Mary. You guys were awesome team. Hopefully we'll see you soon. And we do have a cannabis retreat coming up soon, so you will be hearing more about it in upcoming weeks. We have scheduled this for third week of weekend for third Saturday. I believe it's
I believe it's the 18th.
18th of May, correct. So we will start putting some advertisements quite soon. So please stay tuned, and hopefully some of you can come. See you next Friday.
Wait. Before we let everybody go. So next week we will have Antoinette Kranenberg with us, and she is an Alexander technique teacher. I put a link in the chat. So if you're unfamiliar with the Alexander technique, please click on the link and it'll take you someplace to learn more about it.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye. Oh.